Welcome back to the channel. Now, before we go ahead and get started, I want to personally thank everyone who took the time and watched my last ranking video. I appreciate it more than you all ever know. And to follow up with that, I wanted to cover another animated series from Cartoon Network that I personally believe deserves some recognition. That show is Courage the Cowardly Dog.
Courage the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage the Cowardly Dog!
Created by John R. Dilworth, the series would eventually appear on What a Cartoon, with the pilot titled The Chicken from Outer Space on February 18th, 1996. Nominated for an Academy Award, the pilot was greenlit to become a series that premiered on November 12th, 1999, and generated 4 seasons, 102 episodes, multiple awards and nominations, and the reputation of being regarded as the darkest animated television series to ever be created. Just like last time, we're about to get started with the top 10 episodes of the series. If you like what you see, leave a like and subscribe. Drop a comment of what you have as the top 10 best episodes in the series, and let me know if you would like for me to cover all 102 episodes. Other than that, let's get started.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad! What? Ow!
Alright, coming in at number 10 is my personal favorite episode, The Revenge of the Chicken from Outer Space. I love this entry because it's a direct sequel to the original pilot that started it all. And it feels like the show is reminding you very early on what the whole identity of the episode is. Courage being the only one who takes the threat seriously, regardless of how ridiculous it may be. The episode opens with a montage where a plunger-like device drops from the sky and cleanly snatches heads off of random icons and objects, from a little girl's doll to a mannequin to even the Statue of Liberty, which is a wild way to set the stakes. And then it gets even worse when Courage dreams that a plush version of himself gets the same treatment on an alien craft, almost as if he could predict that he's about to have a hell of a night. Once the UFO shows up and the space chicken descends from the spacecraft, the episode locks into that signature rhythm, where Courage sees the danger clearly. Everyone else is either confused or asleep, and the one person who actually matters gets snatched before she can even process what's happening.
Well, I don't see anything, Courage. Oh! Ah! Put me down! Put me down!
From there, it's a tight, escalating rescue story. When he confronts the space chicken in his ship and he lays out his slideshow plan to remove Courage's head and put it on his very own body, it's both funny and scary all at once. When Courage refuses to cooperate, the space chicken raises the pressure by putting Muriel on the line, by threatening to yank her head off instead. And that raises the tension for everything to come.
Get away from me! Stupid dog! Ow! You rotten dog!
What I really liked about this episode is how both the comedy and the tension keep leapfrogging off of each other. When it's time for Eustace to get involved in the episode, he tries to go back to sleep, forcing Courage to escalate from pleading to smacking him with the slipper. It's hilarious, but it's also tragic when you really sit back and think about it, that Courage is trying to save the only family that he has left. and Eustace is too stubborn to listen. And this is where the episode delivers one of the most memorable moments in the series. Eustace lands in the UFO, attempting to attack Courage, only to be confronted by the space chicken. And he comes out with his head on the space chicken's body. It's funny and disturbing at the same time, which makes it all the more better. The back half of the episode turns into a series of relentless chases, which includes Courage tightroping on a clothesline, with Muriel over his head. But as soon as the chicken returns to the UFO, the rest of the other attempted escapes fail, one after the other, including a wheelbarrow, a raft, and eventually a motorcycle before it ended up crashing, all because of that damn slipper. Then the ending lands the only way the series can. The space chicken finally gets taken out by his own revenge when he lowers the plunger on the target, with Courage jumping out of harm's way at the very last second, triggering a rocket to launch straight into the UFO.
Stupid dog.
And just when you think it's all over, the episode pulls a cliffhanger of having Eustace's headless body walking back to the house with the other slipper. And the final moment is a callback to the pilot episode.
This shouldn't happen to a dog.
Ouch! This still shouldn't happen to a dog.
It's funny, it's true, and it captures the entire premise of the show in just that one line. It's a sequel that understands what made the original encounter so iconic. It turns a goofy prop into a horrifying threat. And it delivers a non-stop escalation that keeps you locked in from the very first decapitation gag to the final iris. It's actually an early example of Courage's greatest strength, taking absurd nightmares seriously enough that you can both laugh and feel uneasy at the exact same time.
Well, you look like something the cow spit up.
You, sir, are extremely bald.
Yeah, you...
At number 9 is The Hunchback of Nowhere. This entry stands out as one of the most heartfelt stories because it uses a simple premise to land such a clear message about kindness, cruelty, and dignity. On a stormy night in nowhere, a lonely hunchback is looking for shelter from the storm, constantly getting rejected again and again, simply because of how he looks, until he finds his way to the bag farm.
Stupid dog.
What he witnesses through the window is familiar territory for the show of Courage being humiliated by Eustace. This immediately establishes a bond between two characters who knows exactly what it feels like to be treated as less than. The episode's strength lies in its restraint. Courage and the Hunchback's friendship forms naturally through small moments like ringing bells in the barn, the trapeze stunts, and shadow puppets, as it shows the Hunchback as someone that can be joyful despite how the world treats him. It also gives Courage something he rarely gets at home, and that's someone who treats him like a friend rather than a nuisance.
Come in, A friend of courage is always welcome here.
What I really like about this episode, however, is the payoff in the ending. When Eustace finally pushes things too far, scaring Courage to the point that he's almost about to fall off the roof of the barn, the hunchback builds up the confidence to confront him with a taste of his own medicine.
You really wanted to see ugly? Stupid dog.
When he pulls out a mask of Eustace's very own face, it was the perfect twist, turning his very own ugliness back at him, causing him to slip and fall off the roof.
Eustace, are you all right?
By the time the rain clears and the hunchback leaves with optimism instead of bitterness, because Courage and Muriel both proved that good people do exist in this world. This episode hits an emotional note that sticks, and it shows that sometimes the most powerful thing that anyone can offer in a world that is full of rejection is friendship. Friendship where the hardest thing around is simply being decent when everyone else chooses not to be.
It would be lovely if I could have a cup of tea.
At number 8 is The Demon in the Mattress. One of the earliest episodes to fully lean into the show's love for taking inspiration of real horror, and it does so with shocking confidence. So the episode starts with a simple and relatable problem with Muriel unable to sleep and she wants a brand new mattress. Only for everything to spiral once it shows that the delivery men look like something that appeared out of a nightmare, and for the new mattress to arrive with a literal demonic face protruding from inside the mattress. What makes the opening of this episode work, like many other episodes, is how Courage can always predict when something bad is about to happen, but its owners are oblivious to the danger until it's too late.
Oh, Courage, stop it! I'm going to have a lovely little nap now. I'll see you soon.
But this one in particular, this is one of those moments where you have to ask yourself, how did they manage to get this episode to premiere on Cartoon Network in the first place? Once Muriel lies down, the possession begins almost immediately. And from there, this is where the episode takes inspiration from The Exorcist, widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest horror movie and scary movie ever made. Muriel's possession, the head spinning, the vomiting, and the demon's deep taunting voice all walk a fine line between parody and horror. The thumb wrestling scene, for example, is one of the many reasons why this episode works, because it shows Courage losing a tiny battle and it makes the demon feel more in control than it has any right to be. Something that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to.
Ha! Slip away, will you? 1, 2, 3. Gotcha! You lose!
The highlight of the episode is when the actual exorcism begins, and they have to read that ridiculous incantation in order to exorcise the demon. Eustace tries, but he fails, and he ends up paying for it in the most disgusting, yet memorable way possible.
I can do it!
Want a tip?
Yeah, sure.
When Courage performs the exorcism himself, the episode earns its resolution because it's a rare moment where his courage is actually literal, not just in his name, and he succeeds through effort rather than luck. By the time the demon jumps out from Muriel to Eustace, the episode fully commits to even more chaos, ending with Eustace getting knocked out rolled into that cursed mattress, and carted away like nothing ever happened.
Now, isn't this cozy?
Now this is a bed I can sleep in any day.
It's a strong episode because it's scary when it needs to be, especially for a younger viewer. It's funny when it needs to be without undermining the tension, and it's structured well enough that it never feels like it drags at any point, as it establishes a building block of what the series would become, with it being one of the best episodes from season 1.
You don't have clearance.
Ooh, oochie, 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 coo.
At number 7 is The Last of the Star Makers, one of the show's most unexpectedly emotional episodes that aired during the final season, and it turns something that's surprisingly tender, tragic even, and it does so without losing what makes it the show itself. The episode begins with 2 star makers creating stars together, and then a space whale arrives, pulling them apart from each other. The male star maker sacrifices himself, pulling the mother away from being sucked in so that she can escape, and creating a supernova in the process, literally becoming the stars that he spent his life creating. When the mother lands at the bag farm with her eggs, the episode becomes a quiet story about protection. And the real beauty of the episode is how quickly both Courage and Muriel understand that, even if they don't understand what she is. The Star Maker makes a star for Courage. Muriel realizes that she's from the heavens, and the mood becomes gentle instead of fearful. That's what makes the government involvement all the more cruel in this episode.
This squid is the last of her kind, and she's a mother-to-be. If you're taking this squid, you'll have to go through me.
Arrest that woman for insubordination.
Eustace sells her out to the government for $1 million. Muriel gets held captive. The Star Maker is slowly withering as she is separated from her eggs. And Courage has to stage a rescue mission to get the eggs back to their mother, or the species will be no more.
It's all up to you. You've got to get those eggs back under that squid, or else there'll never be any new stars in the sky. Go help her.
The back half of the episode is Courage doing what Courage always does best, and that's improvising. And it pays off as he finally gets the eggs back underneath their mother and attempts to hold them off just long enough for them to hatch. And then there's the ending. The eggs hatch and ascend into the sky, saving the species, which makes it all the more beautiful. And then comes the part that makes this one of the saddest episodes in the series, because the mother doesn't get to go with them. She crawls from out of the facility, dissolves into the earth, and becomes a garden. As much as I hate the thought of death itself, let alone talking about it, it can't help but feel peaceful knowing that, for one, she started and finished her life as a creator, and two, she mirrors her mate Supernova, but in a more softer form. And I'm a firm believer that if you're going to air a topic like this on Cartoon Network, you have to do it right. And this episode did just that.
Courage, look. How lovely. She's becoming a garden, from making stars above to making flowers on the earth. Now that's the mystery of life, it is.
To end on a lighter note, the general sets Muriel free, packs up the experimental facilities, and reveals that the bag of money that he gave to Eustace was actually experimental rocket fuel before he launches him into space.
Oh my!
This episode is one of the series' most complete stories. You have a myth about how stars are born, a rescue mission with actual tension, and a thoughtful representation of both motherhood and legacy. It makes you feel awe, anger, relief, and sadness all in the span of one 10-minute episode. And that emotional range is exactly why it deserves to sit among the best of the series.
I found me mallet. Hooray! Stupid dog.
At number 6 is The Tower of Dr. Zalost. The first two-part episode of the series where we have a bigger scope, a bigger story, and a villain whose weapon is literally depression. The episode begins with our villain, Dr. Zalost, demanding $33 billion for his unhappy cannonball project. He gets laughed out of the mayor's office, and he responds by proving his point in the cruelest way possible. He fires his cannonballs into the city, and everyone is hit with depression so heavy that people can't even move. The twist is that even when the mayor pays him the money, Zalost refuses to stop, because money won't fix what's wrong with him. And if he can't feel good, he believes that no one else deserves to either.
We had a deal, Zalost.
Well, the money didn't make me feel any better. And if I'm not feeling good, no one is. So there.
Zalost, you...
The episode becomes personal when Zalost targets the bag farm, and then Muriel gets hit with the cannonball. At first, watching Eustace get hit and being immune to the effects, I thought was a funny joke. But watching the warmest character in the whole show literally turn gray was very unsettling, especially watching Courage try everything that he possibly can to cheer her up, but nothing seemed to work.
Choo choo.
Oh.
What makes the episode memorable after Courage gets inside the tower is how Muriel's happy plums are weaponized. When he gets encountered by the rat and fires the plums into its mouth, transforming it from an unhappy monster to a harmless baby, it really shows that happiness is a force that can literally change what something is. The Hangman game takes the tension and turns it into a dark comedy. From Zalost shaking Courage down for vowels to wanting to shoot him after guessing the right answer, I thought was pretty funny. Almost as if being petty is the only thing that could bring him joy. When Courage accidentally saves the day when the happy plums fall into the cauldron, the episode delivers its most satisfying sequence. As the tower starts to collapse and happy cannonballs are launched, restoring everyone who was affected by the unhappy cannonballs. The same machine that once produced depression can also produce happiness once the ingredients actually change. And the ending lands because it's the rare occasion where a villain isn't necessarily defeated, but instead, they're healed. When Courage returns home, he heals Muriel with a pink cannonball, but Dr. Zalost follows him back home because he wants to keep the misery alive. Shortly after, he ends up eating Muriel's happy plums, and as soon as he does, his color returns, and the unhappy scientist finally gets what he's been wanting this whole time, and that's the intimacy from his pet.
Courage, isn't that the coziest picture you ever did see?
This episode is really one of the most thematic episodes in the series that I'm sure everyone can relate to. It takes something as serious as depression, turns it into horror that fits into an animated series, and ends on a gentle note that makes it feel like it has a purpose when it's all said and done.
He said $1 million slab, and that means I get $1 million. And you know what $1 million means? Oh! That's right! New lawn chairs!
At number 5 is the most iconic episode in the entire series. King Ramses' Curse. This entry makes its way onto the list because of how it earned its reputation of being one of the show's most simplest stories, and also being one of its most terrifying, as it proves that it can actually scare you with nothing. The setup to this episode is simple but cruel. Honestly, one of the darkest moments that the show ever presented. 2 thieves steal a mysterious slab from an Egyptian tomb, try to ditch it at the first landmark that they see, and King Ramses immediately finds them. He appears out of the fog and delivers the ultimatum.
Return the slab, or suffer my curse.
And before they could process what that means, a swarm of locusts appear, eating both them and their car, leaving nothing behind. It's a cold opening that tells you the only way to make it out alive is to be obedient. Courage digs it up because he can't help himself, and the moment he brings it back inside the house, the episode slowly becomes an escalating nightmare that's built around greed. The moment that Eustace learns that the slab is worth $1 million, he stops seeing it as garbage and starts seeing it as a payday.
Nowhere news? I want to put an ad in the paper. Yes, sir. You start running that ad right away.
And later that night, King Ramses shows up at the front door. And this is where the episode slowly becomes legendary. The medium blending of 2D visuals and 3D effects at the time is what makes Ramses' character more memorable than it should be, as he was actually the first character in the series to be created with CGI, making it feel completely foreign to the show's normal animation style. You combine the eerie voice that the creator John R. Dilworth was inspired, and you add the character and animation design provided by his late brother, Jim P. Dilworth, and you have the scariest character that was ever introduced in the show.
Return the slab.
What?
Return the slab, or suffer my curse.
What's your offer?
This night you will be visited by 3 plagues, each worse than the last. Return the slab.
From the moment that Ramses appears in the fog and delivers the ultimatum about the 3 plagues, it's a classic horror structure that's just as scary as Ramses himself. And the fact that Eustace responds with disrespect is actually funny in a moment, but it's also the exact kind of greed and stubbornness that the episode is built to punish. Each plague is terrifying because it attacks the home itself in ways that feel impossible. The flooding is pure panic, as Courage literally has to pull the plug on the whole situation. The record player curse is pure psychological torture, as it turns into a pain that you can't escape. And by the time the locusts show up, the episode officially pivots into survival horror, as it pushes the family to the edge before Eustace finally caves in and Courage throws the slab out the window. That would already be a strong ending, but Eustace immediately snatches the slab back and starts taunting Ramses to his face because he used all of his plagues. And the way that Ramses responds is just pure horror justice. He summons the locust back, and Eustace disappears into his very own punishment.
And don't think you can come around here pushing no tote bags on us, neither. What's your offer?
Return the slab.
This is one of the most perfectly constructed horror episodes that the series ever made. It has a villain that feels uncanny and unforgettable, a creative escalation of the plagues, one of the sharpest endings that the series ever wrote, and a moral lesson that's delivered with the kind of nightmare imagery that people will remember for years to come, even if they don't want to.
Eustace, our guest is here. Say hello to Fred.
Yeah. Hiya. Freak.
At number 4 is Freaky Fred, the creepiest and most uncomfortable episode of the entire series, because the Fred isn't exactly a creature or a monster, but rather, it's something that's close to what we the people experience in real life. The story opens with Muriel's nephew, Fred, on a bus ride to visit the farm, and the way in which he introduces himself to the audience in this cheerful poem, it somehow makes him more scarier than what he should be. And the reason why I say that is because it immediately frames Fred as someone that is narrating his own wrongdoing in such a warm tone, and that contrast is what makes him all the more creepy.
Hello, new friend. My name is Fred. The words you hear are in my head. I said my name is Fred, and I've been very naughty.
By the time he arrives at the farmhouse, Courage's imagination is running wild with the possible horrors that could potentially be behind that door. And the punchline is that none of those imagined creatures are as frightening as the reality. Whether it be that his eyes hardly ever blink, the smile that never went down not once in this episode, the fixation that he displays the moment he sets his eyes on Courage and his fur, or the fact that no one else is taking it as seriously, this was definitely one of the episodes that I personally avoided when I was younger.
Courage, come and meet Fred.
That's when my tired eyes beheld a doggy dog. Like dog he spelled. D-O-G is what he spelled, and that's how I spell naughty.
The episode becomes genuinely frightening once Courage is trapped in the bathroom with Fred, because the danger is both intimate and unavoidable. The fact that the door gets locked shut by Eustace is just cruel, even by his standards. And the cutaways of him enjoying his day is darkly hilarious, but it also leaves Courage completely alone with someone who's not exactly one for respecting boundaries.
Alone was I with tender courage, and all his fur, his furry footage, which I say did encourage me to be quite naughty. Courage.
That's part of why Freaky Fred lands so high. The situation is horrifying, but it's also painfully believable. In the bathroom, he tells these stories about how he first discovered his compulsion with his pet hamster, his girlfriend Barbara, and a customer who entered the barbershop, all while he completely shaves Courage down, piece by piece, with that eerie choir behind the buzzing clippers that makes it sound like a lullaby from hell.
The look upon my young love's face was sweet as lace. But in this case, I realized she needed space.
What makes this all the more unsettling for me personally is that Courage tries to escape, but each attempt is futile. And Muriel is on the other side of the door, assuming that everything is fine, when, as a matter of fact, everything is not fine. This really proves how invisible and oblivious Courage's crisis is to everyone who could help him.
Just can't wait for those pancakes, can ya? Wonderful!
What really cements Freaky Fred as one of the best in the series is the ending. Courage manages to call the number that was on Fred's wristband, and the orderlies drag him out. Muriel waves goodbye like it was a pleasant visit, and Courage is just standing there. But not only is he standing there, but he's standing there shaved and marked with Fred's final little signature.
And farewell, Courage. What's the harm if I was slightly naughty? With love, Fred.
It's a disturbing episode from start to finish because every moment in this entry feels so controlled. And that quiet control is exactly why Fred is one of the most frightening figures that the show ever created. At number 3 is the last episode of the series, Perfect. One of the most psychologically brutal episodes that the show ever made, because it turns the show's usual message into something deeply personal. For the last 4 seasons, Courage has been known for fighting off monsters and villains. But what happens when he has to fight off a monster that was created from his own mind? The episode starts with Eustace tearing Courage down for every little mistake that he made, and that cruelty sets the stage for the conflict, because the constant criticism gets to his head, which ends up summoning the perfectionist, a strict teacher who only Courage can see. That detail matters because it makes her feel like voices that we have in our head, but instead of it being in our head, it's in the form of a human, rather than just a random villain. It's still a villain depending on someone's thought process, but in this instance, it's just not random.
I want to see perfect posture. Shoulders back, chin out, ears up, and walk.
The lessons that she gives him are simple. Walk right, speak right, build right, and sleep right. But the way she delivers them is merciful, and every failure lands like proof that he deserves the shame that he already carries. The nightmare sequence is why this episode is remembered as unsettling as it was, but also what makes it special is that the nightmares aren't as random as we may think they are. They are anxiety-driven dreams, with themes that match the lesson that he's failing. His body, his voice, his worth, and his ability to perform. The perfectionist's harsh drills lead directly into Courage's dreams, unleashing a rapid-fire sequence of surreal nightmare imagery in wildly different animation styles. The Wizard of Oz dream is direct. The sketch nightmare captures the feeling of being attacked, as if your mind can't slow down. The juggling dream is humiliation at its finest, and the vase dream is a symbolic way of saying that one mistake can break your world. The one dream that steals the show, however, is the deformed blue bugle creature, which was once again created by Jim P. Dilworth.
You're not perfect.
Despite how disturbing it may look through the naked eye, this one in particular is memorable because it's the purest example of self-criticism, and it's made worse by how clinical and lonely it looks. Then Eustace kicks him outside for waking them up, and it lands like the emotional low point of the whole series, because Courage, the dog who has saved them hundreds of times, is reduced to a nuisance because of his own fear. What makes the episode land emotionally is the way in which the episode pivots to making itself worthy of actually being a finale. When Courage is at his lowest point in the bathroom, he hears a gentle voice coming from the talking fish inside the tub. The scene is so strange on the surface, but it works because it's the first voice in the episode that speaks to Courage with unconditional acceptance and tells him exactly what he needed to hear.
There's no such thing as perfect. Huh? You're beautiful as you are, Courage. With all your imperfections, you can do anything.
What elevated this moment is shortly after, when Courage notices both Muriel and Eustace's imperfections, and Courage sees what the perfectionist couldn't see. The people who truly love you don't require you to be flawless to sit at their table. And this is the realest message that the series ever hinted at. The final exam is the perfect punchline and the perfect release when the perfectionist demands a perfect 6, and Courage draws it in a way that is creative, strange, and completely his, and that's what breaks her. She melts down literally and emotionally, destroying her own perfect image as she screams herself into nothing. Because perfection can't survive if it's being challenged by self-acceptance.
That's not perfect! You rotten, imperfect mob! No, you'll never reach the perfect level of bad!
The ending lands because it's small and happy. The family is having baklava at the dinner table, and Courage gets the last laugh as he's finally comfortable being himself. As the series finale, it's not just terrifying or memorable. It's thematic, it's emotionally sharp, and it captures something real about how it feels to be judged by impossible standards, and finally decide that you don't have to live underneath them. Courage is perfect because he keeps on going, even with all of his flaws. At number 2 is The Mask, the last 2-part episode of the series, one of, if not, the darkest episode to ever premiere on Cartoon Network, and one of those episodes that will really have you questioning what it is that you just witnessed after the episode has already ended. The episode opens with a woman in a mask, violently attacking Courage while repeating that all dogs are evil.
Dogs are evil.
Oh?
The episode just started, and the violence is already blunt and repetitive. And what makes it worse is how normal Muriel treats it. She mistakes the abuse for play, invites the stranger in for tea, and a place that usually establishes safety is stripped away, and we're only a minute into the episode.
Such a lovely girl.
When Kitty finally explains why she is the way that she is, she explains why she wears the mask. She explains that her best friend Bunny is trapped in an abusive relationship with her boyfriend Mad Dog. She tried to run, but Mad Dog responded with threats so severe that Kitty fled and never looked back, convinced that she would never see Bunny again. That confession is the reason why this is the darkest entry in the series, because this is a story about domestic violence and the way in which people isolate when violence is introduced to them. Kitty's hatred towards dogs is rage without an outlet, and the mask is her way of hiding grief that she can't survive looking at directly. The dinner scene is where the episode's tension turns uncomfortable. Kitty admits that she doesn't want to take the mask off because she can't face reality. And Muriel responds with words of wisdom that I'm sure that everyone has heard before once in their life. But the way in which Kitty responds is what sets the stakes.
We all must face reality.
Really? Like how you sneak extra sweets when no one is watching? You say you can fix anything.
Muriel, I fixed it.
And the episode quietly suggests that everyone in the house is hiding something underneath their mask, just in different ways. Courage's perspective is what makes the middle section so tense. When he sees Kitty's face and realizes that she's a cat, he locks everyone in the house and takes a toy mouse and rushes off to get help. It's not until he goes to the diner and he learns that Bunny is still alive on the other side of the tracks and still suffering because she's still with Mad Dog.
He and his gang left down the road. You know where. After you get Bunny out of there, tell her Charlie says, hey.
The climax works because it feels grounded into something that is quite recognizable. Bunny is literally buried alive after trying to escape from her world of domestic abuse. Courage knocks out both of Mad Dog's gang members, frees Bunny from the flower pot, and the two escape the apartment with Mad Dog himself not too far behind. The chase to the train is where the episode's theme finally crystallizes when Mad Dog pursues them both with the intent of dragging her back. And Courage does one of the most selfless things that he's ever done. He pulls the car onto the railroad track, causing a brutal collision with the upcoming train. Mad Dog still survives, but his violence comes to an end when it finally meets something bigger than him. Then the reunion happens, and it lands because the episode earned it. Kitty and Bunny reunite on the back of the train, embracing one another. Kitty finally admits that she was wrong about dogs, and Courage, at the end of it all, gets the satisfaction of saving someone from something real.
Not all dogs are bad. Now we can be best friends forever. Thank you, dog. Thank you for everything.
This episode makes you feel something heavier than fear. It's about trauma, about love that survives violence, and how hatred can be a shield. And about how Courage, of all characters, can be the one to break that shield gently. Depending on whether you read their relationship as romantic or not, Kitty and Bunny have each other once again. Bunny has her freedom, and Courage has a moment where he helped end someone else's nightmare. And at number 1 is Remembrance of Courage Past. This is the episode that explains why Courage is the way he is, and it hits harder than anything else in the series because it all stems from personal trauma. The whole thing starts off so small and normal, with Courage enjoying food at the dinner table, and then he glances and notices a missing dog notice on the back of a milk carton. That tiny detail cracks something open inside of him, and you can tell that he's not even in the same room anymore. It's really one of the saddest choices that the episode makes because it shows a young audience how trauma really works and how it could just take you at a moment's notice. From there, the episode folds into flashbacks that almost feels as if you're watching a completely different show. We see Courage as a puppy with his parents, and you can already tell, as if you're watching something fragile that you know is going to be ripped away. Courage has an accident where his head gets stuck in between a gatepost and he has to be taken to the vet, after which he asks to speak with them in private. This ultimately leads to the worst day in Courage's life.
Let us go! Don't take me from my baby! To us!
What makes this episode hurt the most is the way everything unfolds in the present. Courage is so shaken that he sits at the table, frozen, reliving his pain. He sits there all night with the same expression on his face, as if he's disassociated with the world and everything that surrounds it. One detail I liked in this scene that shows how severe his condition is when Eustace decides to bring out his mask to scare him and stab him out of it. And he didn't even budge.
Eustace, I'm worried about Courage. I think he's not well.
I've got just the cure. Ooga booga booga!
The one and only time in over 100 episodes that he didn't even scream. And Muriel decides that they should take him to the vet. The same doctor, the same place, the same evil.
But I'd like to have a moment with him. Alone.
Of course, Doctor.
No!
No need to be afraid, Courage. We'll be right outside.
Hey!
Courage, where are you going?
Stupid dog!
That's when the symmetry of watching his parents get taken away sets in. He panics and escapes through the hospital, with the vet chasing after him. During the chase, he gets another flashback, and it just deepens the horror of the episode, as it cuts to his parents being trapped inside of a rocket. And you can feel his pain without the scene going any further from there when it cuts back to present. Muriel and Eustace get captured by the vet and get shoved in the rocket. And you can feel the awful placement of the trauma.
You've seen too much. You'll be the first humans to see my secret experiment at work. Breeding dogs in space is the future.
Another flashback starts, and this one puts the nail in the coffin. The countdown begins, and Courage tries to free his parents, but he couldn't. He was too slow, too small, and too powerless. But he tries anyway. And that's the real tragedy. He tries, but all he can do is watch as his parents get launched into space. The climax in this episode works excellently because it makes it feel like Courage is fighting his own past, and he gets one chance to rewrite the ending. When he gets captured by the vet, he weaponizes his very own scream through the stethoscope, taking his keys to free Muriel and Eustace and shoving the vet into the rocket. It's poetic justice delivered by the smallest character in the room, and you can feel Courage getting the closure that he never got as he watches the rocket lift off.
Courage, I knew you could do it.
Blah, blah, blah.
Then we get that final flashback, which ironically becomes the quietest and most important scene in the whole series. Muriel finds Courage in the alley and choosing him. She names him Courage because she can see the bravery in him before he can, and she takes him home. Even with all the horror that came with it, he had love. That's why he fights so hard for her in every episode. He's protecting the person who saved him when nobody else did.
Out here all alone? What courage you have. Would you like to come home with me? I'll call you Courage. We'll have a grand time.
The episode ends with the implication that the vet gets mauled to death by all the dogs he sent into space, including Courage's parents. It feels like the universe finally correcting something that never should have happened in the first place. And speaking of first place, this episode is the emotional core of the whole series, and it makes the first half of the finale feel earned in a way that very few cartoons ever manage. It explains everything. It breaks your heart, and it gives Courage something that he almost never gets in a show. And that's a win that actually feels like healing.